"Who is dead in the White House?" I demanded one of the soldiers. "The president," was his answer. "He was killed by an assassin." Greetings, my late-night listeners, and welcome back to Night Sessions, where we explore the realm of the unexplained, peruse the paranormal, and study the supernatural. If you're new here, welcome. Make yourself at home, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. If you're a returning listener, thank you, and I hope you enjoy tonight's show. Tonight we'll be looking into the dark corners of one very old house. A house you've most likely heard of, though few have had opportunity to enter. Surrounded by centuries of history and touched by death on more than one occasion, I'm speaking of none other than the White House. This particular White House, located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, has had its fair share of paranormal activity throughout the years. From the phantom figures of past presidents to the apparition of a beautiful lady in a white flowing gown, the stories of this centuries-old house abound with mystery. So grab your teddy and settle in for a spooky night as we prepare to meet the menagerie of ghosts in the White House. During the American Civil War, in a time of death and destruction, there was a rise in spiritualism in the country. Spiritualism, by definition, is based on the belief that the spirits of the dead have the ability to communicate with the living. The spirit world is seen by spiritualists or mediums as an ever-evolving place where spirits are able to progress to higher planes. Contact with these spirits is believed to not only be possible, but to be helpful, and is used for providing information on moral or ethical issues and the afterlife. Some mediums have specific spirits that are often contacted and relied on for spiritual guidance, which they call spirit guides. Spiritualism peaked from 1840 to about the 1920s. During this time, there was estimated more than 8 million followers in the US and Europe alone. The US was experiencing a time of extreme loss and families were in constant fear of losing their loved ones to the war. Bodies of fallen soldiers were often left unidentified, leaving family members grasping for some kind of closure. It seemed many turned to spiritualists and mediums in an attempt to see beyond the grave. Formal communication sessions, otherwise known as seances, were held by mediums who claimed to receive information from the realm of the afterlife, and even made their way into the White House. Mary Todd Lincoln, wife of the 16th President of the United States, was known to have been openly dabbling in this growing movement. Grieving the loss of her second son, Willie, she was encouraged by friends to visit a medium. Feeling desperate and heavy with grief from her recent loss, she decided to give it a try. And within weeks, Mary was claiming that Willie, her dead son, was visiting her on a regular basis. At one point, she proclaimed, "Willie lives. He comes to me every night and stands at the foot of my bed with the same sweet, adorable smile that he always had." In April of 1863, President Lincoln and his wife Mary hosted a publicized seance in the Red Room of the White House. 2 cabinet members were in attendance, as well as a medium named Charles E. Schockel. It's said that throughout the session, Lincoln asked the spirits to help guide him in political matters. However, some say that the validity of this seance was rather questionable. Modern historians say that there was no record of a medium by the name of Charles Schockel. Others speculate that it was a publicity stunt in order to show the president as an everyday man. Whether that particular event was a stunt or not, we might not know for sure, but there have been plenty of other instances documented where the Lincolns have invited mediums into the White House and conducted seances for personal as well as political purposes. Also, I have to say, the idea that any president would host a seance in the White House as a means of showing himself an average American man sounds pretty strange to me. I don't know about you, but summoning the spirits of the dead is not exactly a common pastime in my household. But then, I suppose it was a different time. The strange occurrences of the Lincolns didn't end there. Just days before Abraham Lincoln's murder, he had a dream that would almost appear to be prophetic. He retells the dream in his own words. "About 10 days ago, I retired very late. I soon began to dream. There seemed to be a death-like stillness about me. Then I heard subdued sobs, as if a number of people were weeping. I thought I left my bed and wandered downstairs. I arrived at the East Room. Before me was a catafalque, on which rested a corpse wrapped in funeral vestments. Around it were stationed soldiers who were acting as guards. And there was a throng of people, some gazing mournfully upon the corpse whose face was covered, others weeping pitifully. 'Who is dead in the White House?' I demanded one of the soldiers. 'The president,' was his answer. 'He was killed by an assassin.'" Now, why is it that the most interesting parts are always left out of the history books? That dream just seems a little too accurate to be a coincidence, don't you think? After these strange events and the death of President Lincoln in 1865, the stage had been set for an ongoing series of eerie phenomena in the White House. What do you say we take a break and enjoy this song? In 1946, President Harry S. Truman went to bed at his usual 9 p.m., but around 3 o'clock in the morning was rudely awoken to the sound of knock, knock, knock on his bedroom door. Startled by the sound, he jumped out of bed, putting on his bathrobe like a set of armor. He swung open the door, and nothing. There was no one there. He looked up and down the hall and inside the next room. Still, no one. After closing and locking the door behind him, he went back to bed. But before he could drift off to dreamland, he was interrupted again by another noise. This time, it was the sound of footsteps walking in the next room, the door to which he had left open. He jumped up to investigate, but again saw nothing. The experience evidently left an impression on him, as he wrote to his wife, who was not home at the time of this strange event. "The darn place is haunted, sure as shootin'. Secret Service said not even a watchman was up here at that hour. You and Margie had better come back and protect me before some of these ghosts carry me off." Perhaps he said it with a bit of humor in his tone, but it's evident the uneasy feeling was all too real. Stories were frequently published in the newspaper about the growing paranormal activity in the White House, ghosts being mentioned with far less skepticism than is shown today. As time went on, there were cases of not only past presidents and family members being spotted on the grounds, but other specters as well, like the beautiful maiden in her flowing white gown, who startled a White House policeman as he was making his rounds. Seeing a light in the conservatory, he feared there was an intruder disturbing the prized plants. But upon arrival, he was met by a tall, beautiful lady, dressed in the fashion of the early 19th century. He spoke to her briefly, but she vanished, leaving only the haunting sound of her musical laughter and an eerie glow to the greenhouse. 1 month later, the same policeman was working his rounds when he spotted the strange light yet again. He stormed through the doors of the conservatory and was met with a gust of rushing air and a light touch on his shoulder. He turned and again saw the beautiful woman in her flowing white gown. Terrified this time, he collapsed to the ground, passing out from fear. After reporting this incident to his superiors, he was promptly released from his duty. But that didn't stop him from sharing his story with friends and even a journalist at the time. In the summer of 1911, Major Archie penned these famous words in a letter to his sister. "My dearest Clara, it seems that the White House is haunted." He was speaking, of course, of a ghost fondly called the Thing. He went on to describe the apparition according to some witnesses. The ghost, it seems, is a young boy. From its description, I think should be about 14 or 15 years old. They say that the first knowledge one has of the presence of the Thing is a slight pressure on the shoulder, as if someone were leaning over your shoulder to see what you might be doing. Upon hearing this ghostly bit of gossip, William Taft, president at the time, flew into a towering rage, as Major Archibald puts it. He thinks it will be a very serious thing to have the story get out among the people of the country, he said, and went so far as to threaten that if any of the staff repeated these ghost stories regarding the Thing, they would be fired on the spot. President Taft was not in denial of the existence of such apparitions, but instead wanted to keep them a secret, he himself having had an experience with what he believes was the ghost of Abigail Adams. He saw the image of her ghostly figure float through the doors of the second floor, with her arms stretched out in front of her, as though she were carrying a basket. She appeared to be heading toward the east room, where she had been known to hang her laundry out to dry. Nothing more terrifying than a ghost doing laundry, now is there? Perhaps she had a sense of some unfinished business that needed attending. Going back to the early 1800s, President Ulysses Grant claimed to have seen the ghost of a white-haired old man appear in front of him. Not being the ghost of a former president or first family member, the story was not reported, and may even have been forgotten if the same apparition hadn't appeared to President Chester Arthur some years later. An 1883 newspaper article described the ghost as an aged and bent man with a long, phosphorescent white beard and hair, ghastly and wavy. Bright and glaring eyes and long, scrawny fingers. His walk was noiseless but stately, and his presence is always indicated by a peculiar electric sensation which pervades the surrounding air. For some reason, that particular ghost story gives me chills more than the rest. Perhaps it's the way he's described, and my imagination is running wild with the image of this crooked old man. And why the crackling electricity surrounding him? What makes it even more mysterious is that this ghost is not very well documented in the history of the White House. So I guess it will have to remain a mystery. President Theodore Roosevelt, who we found out last week believes in Bigfoot, also had a paranormal encounter in the White House. He was one of the earliest presidents to meet the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, but he certainly wouldn't be the last. Eleanor Roosevelt in 1932 mentioned that she had felt a presence when working in the Lincoln bedroom, which she used as her study. Working late into the night, she said, "I get the distinct feeling that there is somebody in the room with me." Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands stayed as an honored guest at the White House during her visit to America. While in her bedroom around midnight, she heard a knock on the door. Wondering who it could be at such a late hour, she opened the door and was met by a most unexpected guest. There stood the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln himself. She was utterly shocked. Now, one would think staying at the White House, you're going to run into the president a time or two. The only problem was, this particular president had been dead for nearly 100 years. The list of ghosts in the White House seems endless at this point. We met the ghost of Lincoln several times, as well as the mysterious woman in white who wanders about the conservatory at night. We met the crooked old man with crackling electricity surrounding him. We crossed paths with the ghost of a young boy called the Thing, who was forbidden to be mentioned among the White House staff. We encountered the former First Lady, Abigail Adams, carrying on with her daily tasks as though she hadn't noticed she'd been dead for centuries. And we also met the son of Mary Todd Lincoln, as she called to him from beyond the grave. With this many ghostly sightings, I think it's safe to say that the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is indeed haunted. And that concludes the 6th episode of Night Sessions. If you've had any ghostly encounters in your life or any personal paranormal experiences, feel free to share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed tonight's show, give it a thumbs up. And if it's not too much trouble, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified of upcoming shows. And share this video with a friend. Remember to keep your eyes open. The world is a mysterious place, my friend. Until next time, I'm your host, signing off.